So this is a case study for the task desk by ALLPS. So you as a worker will realize that quite often people will tell you things, and at other times you'll be tweeted, and at other times an embedded form will bounce a message to you somehow, and then you'll get an email, and then, oh my goodness, in quick succession you'll get a couple of urgent phone calls or an urgent letter. We were working with a client who was finding that the multitude of ways that he could receive information and his team could receive information was causing problems in prioritizing workflow and actually knowing who was doing what. So he called us in and gave us a brief. He said, can you collate all the tasks in one place, triage them by importance, group them by activity, automate as much as possible, allow quick and easy access to outstanding tasks. Oh, and don't break the bank. So we showed him this picture. Is that what you're looking for, we asked. Pretty much. I want to funnel everything that comes into us into one simple and easy list that me and my staff can access. So we gave him this. This is something we call the task desk, and this is the front page of any task desk system that we create. You will see that there's an element of branding here, and there's some nice graphics here, and you can map your task by priority, and there's also some social area for working here. So this is all good, but the nuts and bolts of what he wanted is actually here. This was basically our task desk system that we created, and you will see that we could order by status, what it was about, but probably the most important things were when and due dates. So if we move forward, we also gave some fairly simple tools for prioritizing and sort of having a look at what was going on. So we just highlighted there, we'd clicked on email and it showed that all the emails that we had to do. So when we were sat at our desk thinking, right, time to email, we could easily go and find those tasks. But if we were on the phone, we could have clicked on telephone calls, and we make all our telephone calls in one go, which makes us more productive. There we go. So in here, once you click through into one of these items, you can see that there's a social space and activity comments. And what we found is this cut down email traffic because people would comment, check the stock ahead of email. And somebody might reply, already checked it, it's all good. So not only cutting down work, but cutting down multiple threads. If everyone's commenting in the same place, you didn't end up with 6 threads on the same subject. So that's what we created, but here's what the back end took. Basically, we had to funnel all these, but understand the rules that they were applying to. That these systems, the embedded forms, the emails, the tweets, could be automated, but actually there was some working change, some processes that people needed to learn in order to ensure that everything was funneled into our list. Citrix Podio was our answer. We've worked with Citrix Podio quite extensively to create systems such as CRMs, recruitment management, and even intranets. So we went to this go-to, and what we created was a system that had capacity to email in tasks. So let's have a quick look at that. Basically, within Podio, you can email to the app, and the app is what each task desk was called, and we could configure them for an individual person or for a team. It allowed us to personally email in. So when I emailed in a task, it would identify that it was me. So if I was emailing to one of my team, I'd say they'd see that I had given them the task. But it also meant that we could give this email out or create a link on a website that if you email the task in, it would come in as anonymous. And to overcome that anonymity, if you see this last thing highlighted, control how your subject and body maps, it allowed us to say, okay, the subject of an email is the task heading, anything in the email body is the amplifying detail, but it would also capture who'd sent it to us, which allowed us to set up autoresponders, which we'll look at later in the piece. We also were able to create web forms. This is a simple looking web form, and that was hosted on Podio's own site, but they could be embedded. You'll see here that people could attach files, which is quite useful if somebody's trying to send you something to approve, but also that there were security elements with capture in there so that we didn't get spammed. Just up here on the right, you can see that we could embed these into domains, and that gives us allowed domains, but it also gives the code for putting iframe into a website. So quite useful for betting in intranets or even internet sites, so that tasks are submitted directly into the system from your website. And there were lots of configuration options. You see here we just put task, amplifying detail and due, but we could have added from just down here, and that would have meant that everyone who was submitting a task from a website would have to put their email address, and we could capture that, and again that would feed into our autoresponder. So automation was a big deal for us. A lot of what we were being asked to do was to save time. Fortunately, Podio comes with something called Globiflow in its premium format, which is still very reasonably priced. So what we did is we looked at actually some indicative tasks that people needed to do. All our workflows are in there. Some things for bringing things forward to today. 1.1 today was a system of if something had a due date of today, it actually put it into a today list, so you could see everything that needed to be done today. But also you'll see further down we had update to now, and that was something just there. That was something we put in by request, so that 2 days before a deadline something was updated into your now workflow, things that you needed to do now. So a typical workflow here, this one is emailing tasks, how it updates them. You'll see down in the red box that when the task came in, it automatically created that they were an action pending, that it had come from an email, it needed to be done now. But it also put in a due date. And the reason we did, if you look here, we actually embedded the service level agreement that they wanted to have amongst themselves, that within 3 days they would reply to any email that had been emailed in. So this was a great way of capturing that and sort of putting it into the system so that at the 3 days it became a today task and it had to be done. So they were quite useful functions. The last thing I wanted to look at is how we went at integration. Everyone had an iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy or some kind of smartphone, and one of the things that people wanted to be able to do was record a task on their phone, and then it would appear in the system. So that can be done through Podio, but one of the things they found is that if they didn't have an internet connection or they were lacking Wi-Fi, that didn't work quite as well. So we used some third-party software, If This Then That and Zapier, to basically use the phone's internal functions to create memos, and then those memos would forward into the Podio system we created. So that meant no matter where you were with whatever reception, you were still able to record things into your system. ALLPS' role in this process was to really understand the business need, to do the business analysis, crunch the numbers, look at what all the business inputs and outputs were, and make them work. We also were specifying the tools, working to reasonably tight budget constraints, and then going on to configure the tools for use. One of the most important things we did was to train the staff in how to use them, how to make the most of the tool that had been invested in. Perhaps the most important part of any of the projects we work on is the outcome. And what we saw was a happier and more productive workforce. The ease of access and prioritization of tasks made their days simpler. It integrated all their work into one place, which gave them a sense of being invested in. It also resulted in less dropped tasks and emails, and that led to happier clients. What we also saw was a greater accountability on task completion. People could see when tasks were allocated and completed. And we saw greater collaboration on tasks. We showed you briefly that there was a social element of being able to comment, but also people being able to see what other tasks people were taking on. One of the best things they found was reduced email traffic. There was no reply to all creating multiple threads. All the conversations around a specific task would be captured in that comment sector. So that was a brief look through on what we did in creating a task test for a client. We've done this and configured it as a project management tool for small in-house change projects, but we'd be more than happy to help you with whatever challenge you're facing.